And if you're replaceable, then that means you don't matter. And if you don't matter, then that means this whole life thing doesn't matter. And it becomes very, very difficult to continue going on if you don't see a purpose in it, a meaning in it. I don't know if any of you have ever had that thought where you're like, if I wasn't here, then maybe nobody would even notice. It's like, well, yeah, your friends would notice. No, I don't have any friends. Well, the people around you would notice. No, if I wasn't here, there would just be somebody else here. If you go to a job, if you have a job and you realize that if I wasn't doing this job, they would just find somebody else. If I wasn't this friend among my friends, they would just have somebody else that's there. If I wasn't here, someone else would be. And that's something that can really mess up your head. And I can't stress enough that if you weren't here, the world would literally and physically be different. It wouldn't be you. Would there be somebody else there? Yes, but it would be different. It wouldn't be what it presently is. And that means that you are entirely and completely and in every way irreplaceable. You have to get that thing out of your head that you're completely replaceable. You're not. You're not. And if you walk around feeling like it's hard to undo a feeling, but if you walk around thinking to yourself and trying to almost convince yourself that you're as replaceable as a broken lawnmower part, well, then you're going to behave like that. And you're going to treat yourself like that. If you treat yourself like that, it's hard to overcome that. And it isn't fair. Because you would never let someone you care about think that about themselves and behave that way. You go out of your way, like the girls I was talking about last year. You go out of your way to let that person know, no, you're not replaceable. Of course not. You're so much more than what you see. So I was going to ask, what are some things that are valuable or worth a lot? By the way, that's a lot of times the answer.
Money.
Because there's a difference. Like, cause when I ask you, what matters in life? What matters in life?
A roof over your head.
A roof over your head.
Income.
Got it. Check. Income. Check.
Food.
Move.
Food.
Food. Got plenty of it in my fridge over there. Dope. What's that?
Water.
Water? Ew. No, thank you.
Okay, how about this?
Diet Coke, and coffee. Fine. And what I mean when I give that expression, like I don't know, because it's a question that we ask, and we almost have like this knee-jerk reaction of what we're supposed to say is important. Family, friends, doing better, achievement. But what's really important? And we know what's really important to us. You know what's important to you by what you put your time into. It isn't that it's important, it's that you make it important by putting your time into it. Because what's more valuable than your time? I'll give you a heads up. Nothing. Because your whole time is your life. And if I were to ask you what's more valuable than your life, nothing. Because without your life, you don't have access to anything else. You might say like a really cool car. True, cool cars are cool, but you wouldn't have access to that car if you were dead. So you have to be alive first and foremost to appreciate anything or to find anything valuable. So how do you know what's worthwhile? How do you know what's valuable to you? By what you put your time into. Period. So now the question becomes, the stuff that you're putting your time into, is it worthy of you? That's the real question, and that's the hard question. In other words, whatever the thing is that you're putting your time and energy into, is it worthy of you? And I guess that depends on how you see yourself. If you think of yourself as very lowly, then what could you put your time into that's worthy of you? I don't know, scraping dirt off your shoes, I guess, if you think of yourself that low. If you think very highly of yourself, and not just like, I'm the greatest, but just in terms of seeing a value and a worth in yourself, then the things that you want to put your time into, now will start to reflect that. It's easy to say, but it's hard for us to get our heads around. And so, especially when you start thinking about it like that, what am I doing right now? Is what I'm doing right now actually worthy of me? Worthy of my time and energy? And then you're gonna find like sometimes that's why we hire people to do things for us sometimes. It's not that you can't necessarily fix your own car, you can learn how to, but wouldn't you rather be doing other things? And so you pay someone to do that for you. You could clean your own house, for sure, but maybe you hire someone to do it for you. Why? Well, because it's more convenient for you, because you'd rather be doing other things. You could go get your own food, but DoorDash is worth billions because people would rather do other things. You know, it isn't a value judgment coming from outside, it's a value judgment coming from inside. Is what you're doing right now worthy of you? Worthy of what just fast way of saying it. So it's interesting the way he phrases it though, our own worth is measured by what we devote our energy to. He almost kind of inverts it there. So you become worthy by the things that you put your time into. If you put your time into, very, mundane, almost waste of time things, then he would say that's what your life was. And it doesn't even have to be like an external judgment, like I said. It could be something that's inside of yourself that you know. How about this? Have you ever blown a whole Sunday and not known what the hell you did with the whole Sunday? And you might get to the end of the day and you'd be like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And you get that deep, that sick feeling in your stomach, almost like. There's actually, I'm sure what the word is. There's actually a word for it. I used to have it on my fridge. I had a list of phobias on my fridge. I'll print out another one. But there's actually a word for that uneasy feeling that you get on Sundays when you feel like you wasted your Sunday or you wasted your weekend. And then tomorrow's Monday, back to school, back to work or whatever. It's actually a thing. So if you feel like that, or you get that sadness, that melancholy on Sunday evenings, that's an actual thing. Lots of people have that. And usually that comes from having done a lot. Having not done anything with your day. Have you ever gotten to the end of your day and you're just like, man, I did too much today. I can't believe I got so much done. What am I doing? Probably not. You might get to the end of your day and be tired, but haven't you ever been so tired that you're satisfied with it? Yeah. You can I've heard that people can get like that when they work out. They get the endorphin rush afterwards. You feel good for having worked out. I never get that. No, I just I sit there and I'm saying, what am I doing? I've got nothing to prove. Why the hell am I still doing this? But some people get that endorphin rush where they get all excited and they actually get more energetic or at least happy from it. And so, I guess that's the question. What's worthy of you? What's worthy of you? So first things first, you have to know what you're worth. And I don't mean that in some head-spinning Instagram way, know your worth. I mean, you actually have to know what you're worth. And how do you figure that out? You gotta consider it. I was talking to a class yesterday and I was asking, I know I asked you guys too, but my senior classes, I always ask them in the first or second week of school, the first semester, you have to love yourself, don't you? And we always go, yeah, that's true. You gotta love yourself. And then I always ask the question, why? What is so lovable about you? And I don't mean it, hear the tone please. And I'm not saying, what's so lovable about you? I'm asking, what's so lovable about you? Because there is something, at least one thing. And I guarantee you, if you can find at least one thing, then you can start to find other things that pile on top of that. But oftentimes we just don't think about it. We just kind of assume it. Or worse yet, we assume that we're not lovable. We assume the worst out of ourselves because we see all the worst of ourselves. And we don't see ourselves the way that other people see us. There are people in your life who probably see you way better than you see yourself. And they see you as being way more valuable than you see yourself. And just like I'm sure there are people who you see as being way more valuable than they see themselves. And some of you may have friends like that. You might look at them and be like, because maybe they open up to you and they tell you how they feel about themselves, which is very negatively. And you can ask them why do you feel so down about yourself? Don't you see these great things about you? And they might be like, no. I was actually talking to a student last year, and she was kind of going through something like that. And her friend, she came and talked to me after class, and her friend came with her. And I asked this person, how do you see yourself? And she described it. And I'm like, huh. And head was down, she was crying. And I asked her friend, how do you see her? And I remember she begins by just going, oh my God. And she almost rolls her eyes oh my God. And she just goes on for a few minutes. I was getting tired of listening to it actually, because she was going on for a long time about how wonderful and spectacular this person was. And then I asked the other person, do you not see any of that in yourself? And she just goes, no, I don't. And I'm like, wow, it's amazing how we cannot see ourselves. And that's because she sees herself, the one who sees herself negatively, she sees herself from that internal monologue with herself, where she criticizes herself because she didn't say this thing at that time, or she was embarrassed because of this, and she messed up that. Things that nobody else sees, but we just see ourselves. And I think about that with baseball, because you might see the fact that you have failed 7 out of 10 times, and then other people are like, oh no, dude, you're a god, you're a goddess among people, among humans right here. You're hitting 300. Yeah, but maybe they don't realize that means I have failed 7 out of 10 times. No, maybe they don't realize that because they see the spectacularness of what that is. To be able to be successful that much in life is amazing. We judge ourselves for that 7 failure, not the 3 successes. That doesn't mean you should go around life always being satisfied with being successful 3 out of 10 times. There are some contexts in which that's horrible. If you're only successful 3 out of 10 times, don't be a pilot. Don't be an architect or whatever. But in terms of like the life living things, man, that's not. There are worse percentages to have, man. There are worse ways to be seen. What I'm saying is you have to understand yourself in the context of everything else. If you're a quarterback and you only complete 3 out of 10 passes, you're not good at all. But in this context, you're very good. So give yourself a little bit of slack and understanding and leeway by understanding the context of where you are. Not necessarily to use it as a crutch to fall back on and go, well, I'm only human. That's not a terrible perspective to have, but that doesn't mean you couldn't strive to be a better human or a better version of what you are. As I was telling a class yesterday, part of the problem is that we don't realize our worth. And I mean that our worth as a human being, of course, but also our worth to other people. Because even if a person is only hitting 250, they're successful only 1 out of 4 times, teams might still really want that person on the team. Why? Because of what they bring to the team. Not in terms of batting average, maybe kind of in terms of batting average, but largely because you bring the team together in some way. It's almost intangible. You can't explain it, but just having this person on your team makes the team better. You can't even say why it is. It's just their energy. It's something indescribable. They're not replaceable. And that's, I think, part of what terrifies people, is the idea that they think that if I'm not successful enough, I'm replaceable. And if you're replaceable, then that means you don't matter. And if you don't matter, then that means this whole life thing doesn't matter. And it becomes very, very difficult to continue going on if you don't see a purpose in it, a meaning in it. I don't know if any of you have ever had that thought where you're like, if I wasn't here, then maybe nobody would even notice. It's like, well, yeah, your friends would notice. No, I don't have any friends. Well, the people around you would notice. No, if I wasn't here, there would just be somebody else here. If you go to a job, if you have a job and you realize that if I wasn't doing this job, they would just find somebody else. If I wasn't this friend among my friends, they would just have somebody else that's there. If I wasn't here, somebody else would be. And that's something that can really mess up your head. And I can't stress enough that if you weren't here, the world would literally and physically be different. It wouldn't be you. It would be. Would there be somebody else there? Yes, but it would be different. It wouldn't be what it presently is. And that means that you are entirely and completely and in every way irreplaceable. For better or worse. Hopefully for better. You have to get that thing out of your head that you're completely replaceable. You're not. You're not. And if you walk around feeling like feeling like it's hard to undo a feeling, but if you walk around thinking to yourself and trying to almost convince yourself that you're as replaceable as a broken lawnmower part, well, then you're going to behave like that, and you're going to treat yourself like that. If you treat yourself like that, it's hard to overcome that, and it isn't fair, because you would never let someone you care about think that about themselves and behave that way. You go out of your way, like the girls I was talking about last year. that you go out of your way to let that person know, no, you're not replaceable. Of course not. You're so much more than what you see. And unless you devote your time to seeing that, putting your energy into that, it becomes difficult to see. And so your worth is always there, whether you recognize it or not. If this was like some rare expo marker, only one of a kind ever made in the history of mankind, and somehow it was worth $10 million, it isn't worth $10 million. It's worth $10 million whether I realize it or not. I might just go, it's a stupid marker. But that doesn't mean it is. It just means that that's what it is to me, unfortunately. And so recognizing the value in things, that seems to be easy for us to do. If I talk about driving a Lamborghini or driving a Ferrari, many of us are, we don't even know why, but our ears will prick up, even if we haven't seen them before. Or we'll be like, oh, those are nice cars, without even seeing them before, without even experiencing them before. And yet the thing that you experience every day, which is yourself, we have so much difficulty seeing the value in and the worth in. And so that's the point of loving yourself. It isn't just to love yourself unconditionally, it's to find a reason to, because I promise you, man, there are a lot of reasons to. Nobody else is the exact combination of what you are. And if you make yourself even better, because you recognize there are some flaws that you have, of course, and you improve yourself, make yourself better in the ways that you would want your friends to make themselves better. Not because they're valuable, not because they're more valuable to you if they're made better, but because they're more valuable to themselves. Then you probably really got something there. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?